been in discussions with people before, and they referred to scriptures in John, Deuteronomy 18:18, and Isaiah 42.
42, yeah.
Do you see them as all credible?
I think there is because I like to look at religious texts both historically and academically, as well as from a religious point of view. Yeah. I need to be consistent. So I would say two things. On one level, the level of historical exegesis, Isaiah 42 is not about Muhammad. It's about events in Isaiah's day. But, and so that's on one level. And the same with Deuteronomy 18:18. It's not obviously about Muhammad. It could be about other people. It could be about Joshua, for example. And Jews will say it's about other people. That's fine. But, and this is another view here, and this is why I can say it is about them as well, because if you know that Muhammad, if you believe that Muhammad is a prophet of God, a man sent by God himself, and that part of his message is that the previous scriptures mention him, then it is legitimate theologically to read those scriptures in the light of the revelation that Muhammad brought. Yeah?
But what about,
So now, you could say this is having my cake and eat it. In a sense it is, but Christians do this as well when they read all these Old Testament texts in the light of Christ, when they have nothing to do with Jesus But if you believe that Jesus is sent by God, then you can do that theologically. I don't see that as invalid. But at the level of historical exegesis, it's like pulling myself up by my own bootstraps. I couldn't say, well, Deuteronomy 18:18 must be about Muhammad, because you've got to start from the belief that Muhammad is a prophet of God. Then you look back and say, well, who best fits this description? One like Moses. Who is one like Moses? Is it Jesus? Not really. Is it Muhammad? Yeah, he's a really good candidate for this description. Then you can say, yeah, it is about Muhammad. But the level of historical exegesis, the kind of thing you do at university, you would not get that conclusion.
And does it
so that's a more honest answer.
It will come from the brethren.
Depends what you mean by brethren.
This is what I wanted to say. That if you read from the verse 1 of I think it's verse 1 of Deuteronomy 18, Moses is talking to the tribe of Levi. He's not talking to the whole of Israel. He's only talking to one tribe. So when he says your brethren, he's talking about the other tribes of Israel.
Yeah. Indeed, at that level of understanding, you're right.
Yeah.
But if you also know that in salvation history that God has sent other prophets, Jesus and Muhammad, then you can look for that fuller meaning theologically, and that's a valid move. It's not just the immediate horizon of understanding. You can look at other horizons. In Catholicism, it's called the sensus plenum, the fuller sense, and they use it to justify their doctrines. But if you look at that bigger context, I don't have a problem with people saying, yes, Muhammad is prophesied in Deuteronomy 18:18 and in Isaiah 42. Christians will object because they don't believe in Muhammad anyway. If they believed in Muhammad, they wouldn't object. So it's a question of chicken and egg, where you're coming from. There's no neutral space here. There's no I'm going to step outside of all this, because the historical critical method is not neutral either, because it excludes theological readings. It assumes, as a matter of methodology, that God doesn't send prophets. He's just looking at the immediate historical context, and that's a choice to really restrict your vision to a particular way.
I believe Muhammad is prophesied in Isaiah 42, but they don't have a problem when it says there the Spirit of the Lord will be upon him.
What's the problem with that?
Well,
do you believe the Ruach Kodesh, the Holy Spirit, was upon...
Well, it depends on me by the Spirit. I mean, the Holy Spirit in Islam, of course, is not the third person of the Trinity. It is Gabriel. So did the Holy Spirit go to Muhammad in the cave initially, recite?
Yeah, but it says
yes.
It says in Isaiah 42, I will put my Spirit on him.
Yeah.
Not I will send him to him. There's a difference.
Well, we need to look at the original Hebrew and how that can be interpreted. The Semitic languages are not as simplistic and binary as modern English is. So,
and how about the one in the Gospel, though, with the Comforter?
What about it?
We believe that is the Holy
Well, that's interesting. That's actually a more credible one, actually, from an historical critical point of view than all the others. A whole raft of really seriously top biblical scholars in the world, people like, I don't even know them, but people like Rudolf Bultmann, for example, who is probably the greatest New Testament scholar of the 20th century, from Germany. He was a Lutheran, but he was a Christian. He said, and there's a whole bibliography in Raymond Raymond Brown's excellent commentary in the Anchor Bible series, and Raymond Brown himself is a brilliant scholar. And he makes the point that many scholars believe the Parakletos, to use the Greek word, is referring originally to another figure, a human figure, he who will come after Jesus and bring a message of salvation. So now, a lot of scholars who wouldn't agree with that, but a lot of scholars who do say that. It's not just a Muslim idea, this is also something that has been proposed by academics as well. And in Christian history, if you look at the early church, for example, the Montanists, I don't know if you know about church history, okay, you know about the Montanists that Tertullian joined. Montanus identified himself with this figure that was later on identified with Muhammad. So even in Christian history, there had been people who had been identified as this prophet who was to come after Jesus and who wasn't Muhammad. So it's not actually just a Muslim idea, it's been there in Christianity before. So the idea is actually supported by a lot of Western Christian scholarship, that there would be a figure like Muhammad who would come. Now they didn't say it was Muhammad, by the way, but the job description fits Muhammad.
Part of that prophecy was that spirit will abide forever. It'll be with the believers forever. So how would you interpret that in the light that it was Muhammad? Because we know obviously he must have died.
The revelation that he brought is the Quran is there for believers.
He's speaking to the disciples of Jesus. The disciples were waiting for him after Jesus left.
I think we need to understand what's being said here. It's not that Boltman and others are saying on the surface reading of it is referring to it, but they are saying that. But they're saying that John's Gospel has gone through several editions before it reached the final form we have it today. If you look at John 21, it actually says, not the author of the Gospel, he says, we testify that he, the author of this Gospel, this is in John 21 itself, has said these things and he is true, or he's a true witness or something, yeah? So even in the Gospel itself, it's talking about someone else who's the author of the Gospel. So there's two authors of John, even in the Gospel itself. But even more than that, Raymond Brown has posited that the Gospel has been through 5 editorial phases, 5 redactions. Given what you can see you can see the seams where bits of the text have been put together. And there's something that scholars have uncovered. So he suggests there have been various redactions or various editions. Now what's this got to do with the Parakletos? Because it looks like in an earlier edition of the Gospel, what we call the Gospel of John, this salvific figure was an independent figure with a specific characterization as a man, because the pronoun is used in Greek of he, and is not normally used in that way of the Holy Spirit. Is specifically genderized.
Isn't it? The Holy Spirit would be
but here he is referred to as a gendered entity, a person who comes after Jesus. So if you have this kind of fairly sophisticated understanding of the history of the Gospel, the way it's redacted, and you look at the unusual features of the Parakletos, it being an actual pronounced gendered person, then that invites the question, maybe there was someone who was to come after Jesus who was expected to also preach the truth. And this, again, if you believe Muhammad is prophet of God, he fits the bill perfectly. But in the early church, other people also thought to have fitted that bill. So it's not just a wacky Muslim idea. Christians also had this idea themselves. When they read the Gospel in the early church, they thought it was referring to someone else as well. So now you may think they're wrong, and that's fine.
Because Jesus says that Holy Spirit who you're talking about, he said he lives in you, and he will be with you, and he'll be in you.
I get what you're saying, and there is an answer to that. But you need to read the academic work of these top biblical scholars to understand why they're saying this. But they are saying this, and there are a lot of them who are saying this, and it has nothing to do with Islam for them. This is just someone was to come, a human being, a man was to come after Jesus who would be a prophet.